Well, we've come here today to enjoy a presentation from someone that Sarah had to wrestle and rope into coming.
No, I had to just throw balls at him.
Throw balls at it because...
You know,
Yeah.
you know, that's what you wanted, right?
Were they tennis balls?
Yes.
we-
Who knew?
She had to let him win, too.
Yes. We love Jimmy Butler, you can tell.
Exactly.
And we'd have him come more often, probably every month if we could. But you know, we know he has a busy schedule. He's a massage therapist as well as being a champion. I call him champion. Because you know why? He knew how to be a winner at table tennis and went to the heights that no one else I know could ever accomplish. And he went there with the name of God on his lips, always. And there's a lot for us to learn from that. Because he personifies life. And I just want to tell you the short story of Carl. Jimmy Butler would go to the nursing home and give Carl massages. And really, what Carl would tell me is, you know, he makes me feel so good. Isn't that beautiful? You know, very little pleasure could Carl have in that nursing home, scrunched up in that chair. But when Jimmy Butler came in, his eyes lit up like lights. Because Jimmy is a child of love. Let's welcome him. Oh, and the topic? I've got it here. The human birth is a precious gift. Come on.
I'm going to gently take this microphone out so they can reach me. First of all, Donald, thank you for that beautiful introduction. You always do such a beautiful introduction. One I definitely don't deserve, but thank you. And I'd first like to say how wonderful it is to be with all of you here today and to celebrate the precious gift of being in the human form. Because just being in the human form is a great, great blessing. It's a gift of God. So why is the human form such a precious gift? You know, there's a belief in the East and in other religions that there are 8.4 million of species. And there's also a belief that our soul could have been put into any one of these 8.4 million of species. So you can well imagine if we had to go through a number of these different species, how long it could take just to get to the human form. Another reason the human form is such a precious gift is it is believed that God has given us all the faculties that are needed to know by us, to know who we truly are, and to know God. God has given us what is called the single or the third eye. And I'm pretty confident everyone in here has heard of the single or third eye. It's located right here between and behind our two eyebrows. We can't see it with our physical eyes, but we can experience it when our attention is put here properly. And it's only human beings that have this single or spiritual eye. None of the other 8.4 million of species have this spiritual eye, so they don't have the ability to experience who they truly are and to experience God. So those are a couple of the reasons why the human birth is so precious. And so I'm going to share a story from a meditation master that I'm a student of. His name is Sant Rajinder Singh. Some of you here met him. He came to Houston, is it 3 years ago? It could be 4. Time is flying. You guys will help me with that. About 3 years ago, he came here and visited. Some of you met him. And I've been following him for 24 years now. And so I'm going to share a story that he talks about in one of his books, talking about the gift of the human form. So Sant Rajinder Singh starts the story like this. A man went to heaven, and God told him that he was lucky to have had a human form. The man asked God, "Why are humans so special?" God said, "Peep down upon the earth, and you will see what makes humans so special." God first showed the man the insects. "See the insects," said God. "Notice that the ants, the worms, and the crawling creatures all have their heads down towards the earth. Even the bees and mosquitoes fly around with their heads looking down." The man said, "Yes, I can see that." God said, "Now look at the reptiles. The snakes and lizards crawl around with their heads facing down to the earth." The man said, "Yes, I can see that." Next, God showed the man the birds, saying, "Even though the birds fly, their heads are always pointing down to the earth. You don't see any birds with their heads flying face up, do you?" The man said, "You are right. They all fly with their heads down facing the earth." God said, "Now look at the mammals. They all crawl around the earth on 4 legs, with their heads hanging down." The man said, "So, what makes human beings different?" God said, "Humans are the only creatures that can look up. They are the only ones that can lift their sights from the world to see God in the spiritual realms above. Human beings have been blessed by God with a special faculty by which we can gain spiritual knowledge. That opportunity is offered to every human being, but few make use of it." So it's interesting, at the end of the story, he says, few make use of it. And so what does he mean by that? Well, he probably means a lot of things. I can never understand everything he means, because when Rajinder Singh says something, it can mean 100 different things. But one of the things that I comprehend he means is we have this human form. We've been given a spiritual eye, but we don't use it very often. We also have the ability to direct our attention towards God or to direct it towards the world. Something different than the other 8.4 million species. Their attention is 100% focused on the world. They're focused on eating, they're focused on surviving, and they can only receive input from the world. We have the ability to receive input from the world, which we're all masters of, right? We're very good at receiving input from the world, but we also have the ability to receive input from God. And we definitely all do that also. And so it's a matter of, if you were to take, let's say, 2 jars. This is how I like to analyze how I'm doing every day or every week or every month. If we have 2 jars, in one jar, anytime we have a thought of the world, we can put a pebble in that jar every day. In the other jar, anytime we think of God, we can put a pebble in there. And I'll add to that, anytime we think of God or anytime we help someone else. Because those two are equal. When you're helping someone selflessly without reward, you're just doing it out of the goodness of your heart. That's equal to thinking of God. So in this jar, if you help someone, whatever time that is, we'll put a pebble in there. And if you're thinking of God, we'll put a pebble in there. And we can, at the end of the day, see for ourselves which jar is the most full. And so next, let's practice 2 minutes. We're going to practice meditation. And meditation is another word for concentration. I like to say, when people say meditation, what is that? It sounds like a word that's strange, different, or maybe unknown to some. And I like to tell them, you're actually already a master of meditation. You're a master of concentration. You're very good right now concentrating on the world all day. So am I. Concentrating on the world all day. We've all been born and raised to do that. When we wake up, generally the first thing we start doing is we think about something of the world. We have to get ready, we have to get dressed, maybe we gotta go to work, gotta take care of our family. Generally our attention goes on the world, and then as soon as we get in the car, we're really good at concentrating on the world. We're focused on driving, maybe someone went in front of us, might have upset us, we got to get to our work. As soon as we get to our job, we start concentrating again. And many of us get in a cycle where it goes into our dream state. We have to dream a lot of the thoughts that we had during the day. That's why if a little kid watches like a scary movie, parents have learned, don't let him or her watch a scary movie because they tend to have nightmares, because the scary movie gives them scary thoughts and then they tend to dream them at night. So we're generally focused on the world day and night. And so the kind of meditation we're going to practice right now is concentrating on God. And so meditation is a process where we withdraw our attention from the world outside and focus it at the seat of our soul, which is the single or third eye, located here between and behind the two eyebrows. You sit comfortably and try not to touch anyone next to you because that would distract our concentration. And we're going to practice this for 2 minutes right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to close our eyes and we're going to put our attention right here at the single or third eye. Your eyeballs should be straight and focused about 6 or 8 inches in front of you. It's important to know that your eyeballs actually aren't trying to see anything. You just want to leave them relaxed, looking straight forward. It's your attention on your single or third eye, located between and behind your two eyebrows, that is going to experience whatever you experience in front of you. And so in order to experience the inner light of God, this is meditation on the inner light of God, it's important to still the mind. Now, to still the mind is the most difficult part of this meditation process. The mind is very good at sending us thoughts. Thoughts of the past, thoughts of the present, thoughts of the future. It's unlimited the kind of thoughts it can send you. And so there is a technique that is very effective at stilling the mind, and that technique is to repeat any name of God that you're comfortable with. We want to repeat any name of God you're comfortable with mentally, with the tongue of thought, and not out loud. And I'll repeat it out loud for you to give an example of what you could be doing. Let's pretend you choose the word God. And so you'll mentally and quietly repeat to yourself, you'll say, God, God, God. Or if you choose the name Christ, it could be Christ, Christ, Christ. And so you'll repeat any name of God that you're comfortable with. You'll close your eyes. Focus 8 to 10 inches in front of you. This meditation sitting will be for 2 minutes, and I will bring you out of this meditative state. And let me say one more thing, I'm sorry. When you're focused 8 and 10 inches in front of you, it's very normal to experience darkness in the initial phases. That's okay. The process is still working. But some of you in the early phases might experience little specks of light. You may experience circles of light. You may experience inner vistas. They could be any color: gold, orange, yellow, blue, purple. If anything appears in front of you, look straight in front of what you see and look into the middle of whatever you see and keep repeating the name of God that you're comfortable with. This meditation sitting will be for 2 minutes, and I will get you out of this meditation sitting. My best wishes are with each and every one of you. Please come out of meditation. So that meditation sitting we just practiced is one of the meanings of that last statement by meditation master Sant Rajinder Singh. is, what we just did the last 2 minutes, the birds, the fish, the insects, the plants, and all the other species can't do. They don't have the faculties in order to be able to do that. So to just be in the human form and to have the opportunity to do that is one of the greatest blessings we could possibly have. The challenge, which we all face equally, is the world is very distracting. And the world does its best to try to get us to not think of God and to try to get us to not put our attention on our single or our third eye. That's definitely a challenge we all face equally. But there's definitely nothing higher we can do to experience the love or to be a child of love, as Donald was talking about. Jenna said something beautiful in the beginning prayer. She said, I might be getting, you can help me here, but she said something to the effect of, God, please help me wake up. You said something like that, or please help me understand who I am. That's what you said. Yeah, Jenna said, God, please help me understand who I am. And so, that kind of dug deep into my heart because, one thing that I've experienced in my human life so far, I'm 50 years old, and, the first 27 years of my life, I don't think I ever thought about God one time. Not because of anything bad, I was young, and I just wasn't aware of God, and I was so busy being an athlete and focused on the world and having fun and all that stuff that I just never thought about God at all. And then when this whole concept was brought up to me at 27, basically the exact same thing we just talked about started being introduced to me, that was the first time that I even realized there was an importance of where we put our attention. That was the first time I realized that it actually counts each moment that we think of God. Furthermore, I didn't realize that it actually counts against us when we're not thinking of God. And what do I mean by counting against us? Well, it's said that there's only a couple things that really bring us closer to God. One is thinking of Him, meditating on Him. We just did that today. We definitely all just got closer to God during those 2 minutes, and we've been getting closer this whole morning because we're all here talking about God. So thinking about God or talking about God, that's the same thing. That definitely gets you closer to God. And then we also mentioned helping someone else. That's one of the highest things you can do, and that's equal to thinking or talking about God, is helping others. Those two things definitely get you closer to God. Can anyone else think of something else that gets you closer to God? Anyone?
Walking in nature,
And what are you thinking of?
God.
That will do it. That's a good point she brings up. She said walking in nature. I waited. More importantly than her walk in nature is, where is her mind? Because her body's walking in nature, but if her mind is at the football game, is she getting closer to God?
No.
She's getting closer to the football game, right? Right. So the most important thing is not where our body is, but where our attention is. That was something that I was totally oblivious to previously. Now, when I first heard this, I didn't just run out and start thinking of God all day. I can promise you that. I was 27 years old. I loved the concept. It sounded great. Tried it a little bit. I was in kind of a church group like we are now, and while I was there, I was thinking, I'm going to go home and I'm going to think of God all the time. This is amazing. I was so pumped. Then I went home, and you know what happened. The distractions of the world were stronger than my initial excitement. And generally, I would go home and just start thinking of the world all day. Come back, get this conversation, always gave me a boost. I started thinking about God a little more. I'd go home. The distractions of the world would totally take me over. And everyone's different. Some people might hear this and just take off with it. I wasn't one of those guys. It kind of had to sink in, and it kind of took some decades. But I would say 4 or 5 years ago, something happened where I just decided, you know what? This thinking of God thing, I know it works. I know it's good. But there's one thing I haven't done, is I haven't tried doing it all the time. And that's what I wanted to share next. That meditation we did, that's the highest thing you could do, in my opinion. because you're putting your attention on your singular third eye, and you're giving yourself the opportunity to experience the light and the love of God from within you. But as you all know, there's also the light and love of God on the outside too. God is in you, God is in you, God is in you, God is in you. And so it's very important when we're not meditating and putting our attention at our singular third eye, when we're walking around, which we're all about to do, when we're driving, when we're interacting with each other, is we still want to keep repeating the name of God mentally, just like you did in the meditation. So meditation on your singular third eye isn't just for when you still your body and mind and focus here. We should still be doing the same thing when our eyes are open and we're walking around. Obviously, if your attention is needed fully, let's say you're cooking and the stove's about to burn you, or the cook, yes. Sometimes you need your full attention on what you're doing. So I'm not saying take your attention off what you're doing if you need your attention on that fully. But anytime you notice when you're cooking or driving, you'll notice your mind starts daydreaming. It starts thinking about other things, not necessarily what you're cooking or that you're driving. Those are the best moments when you should be thinking of God. Because I believe Sarah talked about waking up. And one thing I learned is the more I repeat the name of God mentally, whether my eyes are open or whether meditating, I tend to wake up more. What does that mean, to wake up more? I become more loving. He says I'm a child of love. Well, if I'm a child of love, I need to act loving. And it's actually not easy to act loving all the time if your attention is not on God. This is why we get irritated. This is why we get upset with each other. This is why we say things and we think things that we probably shouldn't do. It's because we forgot or stopped thinking of God, and our attention has gone on the world and gone on an activity or a situation that is now giving us negative input. And once that happens, we start then reflecting that negative input back out to whoever we're dealing with. So for me, the greatest thing that's ever happened in my life is when I learn to start thinking of God. And I'll share one more thing. It's not easy to think of God all day. It's not easy. And I know a number of you in here have been practicing it. And it's actually just as difficult as becoming a CEO of a company, the world champion of a sport, the president of a country. It's actually just as difficult. It takes the same kind of effort. It takes the same kind of commitment. It takes the same kind of desire. So in saying that, that's not to discourage anyone from doing it. I want to encourage you by saying, if it's something that sounds like it interests you and that you want to start practicing and trying, don't get discouraged when you find that the first minute or two you were pretty good at it, and then 3 hours later you realize you totally forgot God. Because that's what happened to me in the initial stages. I could keep my attention on God like 1 or 2 minutes, and I'd forget Him 3 hours. It sounds crazy. How could I forget Him 3 hours? It would happen to me all the time, but I kept practicing, and it got to a point where I'd remember Him maybe 5 or 10 or 15 minutes, and then maybe forget Him 10 or 15. And then it got to a point where I'm remembering Him a couple minutes, forgetting Him a couple minutes, remembering Him. So it does take practice. I've been practicing it as hard as I can very hard for 4 or 5 years. Not that I wasn't practicing it before, but I really put in an incredible effort the last 4 or 5 years. So it takes years, so don't be discouraged. Every moment's precious. Every moment you think of God just went in your spiritual account. It definitely got you closer to God. Same with helping others. And every moment you didn't think of God, that's okay, because you got the next moment to remember Him again. And so that's what I wanted to share with all of you today. It's always such an honor and so wonderful to be here with all of you today. And this meeting happened because I was going through Kroger on San Felipe and Voss randomly. It was like 9 o'clock at night or something. And guess who I ran into? This happened like a month ago or something. Guess who I ran into? I ran into these two. And so we bumped into each other, and they said, hey, would you come back to Carmel Temple and speak with us? And I said, I would love to. because no one gets more benefit than me for the opportunity to come here and to speak with all of you beautiful people. Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here again.
Thank you.